Allow me to introduce you to a critical element of game design, mechanical discovery. The feeling of discovering how something works within a game, or of finding new ways to do something within it. This concept is simple but incredibly important. You want to keep your players feeling curious about the way your game works, or finding new ways to improve at its existing mechanics. By ensuring that the player consistently experiences some element of mechanical discovery, you delay the game from reaching a figured-out state. Hail friends, I'm Wander Rin, and today we'll be discussing the value of mechanical discovery in video games. Mechanical discovery is only one of 4 types of discovery used by game developers. But it's the type that's most appealing to me, so it gets to be the topic of today's video. Let me hit you with some examples. Do you remember Minecraft before this ugly green book appeared in your inventory? I never used this thing. Clicking on it will open up the recipe book, allowing you to browse all of your available crafting recipes. Now, you might be thinking, oh, this just saved me a trip to the wiki. And you're right, but that might actually be a bad thing. Hear me out here. Before the recipe book was added to Minecraft, you as a player had to gain the knowledge of how to craft and assemble each recipe on the crafting grid. Now, you could figure this stuff out organically by trial and error, or by just messing around with different stuff in the crafting grid. And I can't stress this enough, some players will do this, and it creates a feeling of invention for them, of actually discovering how to craft an item all on their own. You could just open the wiki and look up any recipe you want, but taking that approach undermines the element of discovery. That said, having to go out of your way to open a separate browser tab and find whatever you were looking for provided a slight barrier at least, as many players would rather just play the game and not be taken out of the experience. However, with the addition of the recipe book, you can now click this one little button in-game, and bam, no more running to Google. But it also meant no more scrambling as the sun sets, trying to figure out how to craft your first door, or bed, or the joy of finding out that you can just slap a door sideways in the crafting grid and it makes a trapdoor instead. Or, oh, look, the sticks and string can make a fishing rod. That element is now lost in the name of convenience. Anyway, here's another example. Let's say you're playing Hades for the first time. You give your dad the finger and set out to escape from the underworld, sword in hand. After killing your first group of monsters, you're given a mysterious glowing orb. It grants you a new power from one of the gods. You've just discovered your first boon. Hades is a roguelike, and after several runs, you're starting to climb higher and higher. You just finished clearing out another chamber. You go to pick up your new blessing, but there's another option this time. Something you haven't seen before. You can combine 2 of your current boons instead of receiving a new one. This opens up countless new opportunities and mechanics. And now you're thinking, what else can I combine? How does this change my plans? In fact, the very nature of a procedurally generated roguelike works against this mindset of running to a wiki or guide in order to find the most efficient possible way to play at all times. Always following the meta, the most effective tactics available, is a great way to optimize the fun out of any game. So by frequently shifting what the meta could be, by changing the core set of game mechanics between each run, you won't know what your next available choices will be, so why worry about knowing all the options? You'll be shown what you need to know when you need to know it. By doing this, the player is encouraged to discover the mechanics of the game for themselves, and not from an outside source. And we're not even touching on how new weapon types are slowly unlocked for the player.
Come, Stygius.
Or the heat system offered by the Pact of Punishment, which allows the player to earn permanent progression items, provided they're strong enough to endure the stacking difficulty modifiers that come with these runs. In most roguelikes, each attempt changes which combat mechanics you get access to, and in what order. Because of this, the new mechanics are discovered over a longer period of time, and then gradually mixed together, combining in unique and interesting ways. This means that throughout the entire gameplay experience, the player should get a fairly consistent feeling of mechanical discovery. This was critical to Hades' core design, and honestly, they nailed it. Here are some other examples. The entire library of late-game trials and raids in Final Fantasy XIV are based around the element of mechanical discovery. You must learn the boss's attack patterns and abilities, either through sheer will and repeated attempts, or through the many guides available online. For real though, late game 14 is more or less this team-based test of fast-paced, engaging combat mechanics. And that element of figuring out how to eventually overcome the challenge, the game would be lost without it. If you've been a real gamer for as long as I have, you might remember a little game called Starcraft 2. Now, the whole point of playing ranked Starcraft is to improve your skill at the game. Your level of mechanical skill, your knowledge of the game mechanics, and overall experience as a player is what's important in Starcraft. You don't get stronger abilities or any kind of permanent progression against other players by leveling up or, God forbid, by buying power. No, at the end of a match, that's it. The next one's a clean slate on an even playing field every time. When you win, you move up in rating and face more skilled opponents. They won't have stronger units than the players you faced before, or any sort of in-game advantage over them. They're just better at playing Starcraft, and now you are too. Here, the element of mechanical discovery comes not from unlocking a new weapon upgrade or unit type that you didn't have access to before. No. The sense of discovery will come about when the player figures out a more efficient build for themselves. When they pull off their first Baneling bust, and then they need to change their pants immediately. Or teleport their battlecruisers in and quickly realize they can't just hop them back out. These are moments of the player discovering mechanics within the game, and they're vitally important to making your time feel well spent. The most direct example that I can think of actually comes from Slay the Spire. Now, this is another roguelike, but unlike Hades, this is a card game, not an action RPG. In Slay the Spire, your skills and abilities are represented by the cards in your hand, and you fight monsters by expending energy to play these cards. At the end of every fight, you're given a choice between a few different cards to add to your deck. As you make your first ascent, you'll encounter all sorts of skills and abilities this way. But this is only one such element. At the end of your run, whether it ends in victory or defeat, you'll gain points to unlock new cards that can be used in subsequent runs. Now you're not only discovering the cards you already had access to by encountering them in a random order each time you play, but also unlocking completely new skills and abilities to add to your future attempts. This drives the player to try again and again, to get farther and farther in order to unlock all the potential moves. Without a doubt, mechanical discovery is an incredibly important facet of game design. Without it, many players will feel that your game is only ankle deep. Here's what I mean. Let's look at Pong this time. On a surface level, there isn't too much to explain about Pong. The ball bounces off whatever it hits, and you want to make sure that your paddle hits it when it comes to your side. It'll bounce in certain directions depending on where you hit it, sure, but someone who's played 20 rounds of Pong will know as much about the game as someone who's played 200. There's simply nothing further to explain. There's only one mechanic, and the game is about mastering it. That doesn't make Pong a bad game, just a simple one. Games don't need to be complex in order to be good, but the element of mechanical discovery can be what takes your project from being a single, simple concept to something with progression that gives the player a sense of desire for what's to come. Breakout is basically an evolution of Pong. There are upgrades that add different effects to your paddle or to the ball, and after you clear out all of the blocks, you'll be presented with a new level, a new challenge that might require a different approach. Slowly, different variations of the bricks are also revealed to the player, becoming apparent only after they reach a certain stage. I think you can see what I'm getting at here. Breakout is basically just Pong, but with an element of added mechanical discovery. And the difference is monumental. Most modern games invoke this in some way, and it's clearly pretty important to making a game replayable, or even just fun in the long term. It reflects a remarkable aspect of human psychology, our unending, unquenchable thirst for knowledge and improvement. We want to find out everything about whatever we're given. We seek to have complete understanding, because we want to excel, to be the fastest hedgehog, or deal the most damage to the boss, or whatever your metric may be. And whether we know it or not, mechanical discovery has driven us to get there. Do any games come to mind for you that make heavy use of this element? Leave a comment. This is my second video, so I'm going to be checking them. Also, I know it's a bit early still, but I've started a Patreon. I'm only doing this because the channel has been in the works for over a year now, and honestly, I'm still not in any position to spend very much of my time working on it. I have a lot of content, ideas, and passion to share. I've got tons of ideas for videos in the future, and if you'd like to see your name at the end of all of those, you can become a patron for less than $1 and help us make our first steps into full-time content creation. Of course, you can find links to our Discord, Patreon, Twitch, and Twitter in the description below. And until next time, good luck and have fun.